Hello, everyone. This is Wendy, and actually, over the past 24 hours, we've seen that Fissure 8 has been the dominant producer of lava. That is the same one that was active yesterday, overnight, that produced the lava flow that went through the eastern edge of Leilani States. And overnight, the flow was, or that fountain, the lava fountain from Fissure 8 was reaching heights of 200 feet, and it was feeding a flow that was traveling to the northeast, and that it was overprinting the lava flow that had inundated Leilani Estates on the night before. It crossed Poho'iki Road at 5 a.m. this morning, and we have crews out there right now tracking the advancement of that flow. It is moving across the PGV access road, so it's continuing its advancement towards the northeasterly direction. There's also been some volcanic glass and other material that are being blown downwind from that high fountain at Fissure 8, and there were reports of Pele's hair falling in Pahoa. It's important that people realize that the stuff that might be falling from the sky, especially in Pahoa, is volcanic glass, and they can cause skin and eye irritation, similar to volcanic ash. These are really sharp pieces. They can poke into your skin. So just be aware that if you're sensing that there's little rocks falling from the sky or pieces of volcanic material falling from the sky, that you should just be cautious of those. Don't rub it onto your skin because it can kind of embed in your skin and irritate you. Maybe rinse your skin off with water if you encounter pieces of volcanic glass falling from the sky. Also, the volcanic ash, the gas emissions rates from the fissures still remain high, and I'm hoping that we'll get a report on the weather, but trade winds are reported to start coming back in the few days ahead, so hopefully that will mean the fog and the falling of volcanic glass from the sky will switch directions and not impact people into Pahoa and other areas to the north. There's been going up to the summit, ash has been continuously kind of erupting from the vent within Hawai'i Mountain crater, and at 1:56 a.m., there was an explosion that sent ash to 15,000 feet above sea level. The ash cloud rose pretty much vertically and then drifted only a little bit to the northwest because the winds were very calm. And the explosion was reported by residents in VOLCANO because, well, there were also some incandescent blocks that were thrown out of the vent and landed in Hawai'i Mountain just along the edge of the crater rim. That's my update for today.
Aloha. My report today is pretty much status quo. Park remains closed, 2/3 of it, and today is day 19 of the park closure. I was at a meeting prior to this one where our facilities maintenance chief gave an update on some of the earthquake damage that has occurred. Right now, the entire park is without water in the Kilauea sector. It's unknown how many number of damaged water lines there are. There are at least 8. 6 have been repaired, but there could be more. And we don't know when we're going to be able to turn the water back on in the park. It's kind of like, when is this eruption cycle going to end? And we, since the earthquakes and seismicity remains elevated and ongoing, there seems to be little sense in fixing these very old pipes that keep getting damaged with the new earthquake cycle. There is also, as of last night, significant damage to Helena Pauley Road, and 3 buildings have still sustained earthquake damage, which include the Jagger Museum, the USGS Hawaiian Volcano Observatory, as well as the Visitor Emergency Operations Center. And that's all I have today.
All right, good morning, everyone from Hawaii. Right now, as Wendy mentioned, we do have some lighter winds, and they are pushing some of the volcanic emissions towards the north and northwest. And we expect that to continue through today, but we do have our trade winds starting to pick up later on this tonight and tomorrow. So we should be back to sending those emissions mostly downstream to the southwest. Otherwise, it's a very rainy day over on the windward side of the Big Island, and we expect that rain to continue through today, tonight, and into tomorrow, with some clearing expected by tomorrow late in the morning.
Our first question comes from Sherry Bracken, Hawaii Public Radio. Your line is now open.
Hi, good morning. Aloha, everybody. Wendy, you spoke of the lava, but please address Highway 132 and where the lava is and where it seems to be going relative to 132 or other highways.
Hi, Sherry. Wendy Stovall here. So I don't have the exact location of the flow front right now. It does seem like it is still moving towards the northeast, and there's a map that we published yesterday on our website. So if you look at that map, you can see that it looked like the front of the flow was going to cross a road that goes down towards PGV, and we do see that it has basically crossing that road as we speak. So the trajectory is towards Highway 132, but I don't know what the timing is and whether that flow will continue to be fed. I'm trying to get up-to-date information on it, but I don't have an exact location of the flow front right now. I'm sorry.
No worries, that's fine. It just, Civil Defense said Highway 132 was shut at 6:45, so I didn't know if the lava was actually there yet or coming. So thank you so much.
It's not there yet. It's still kind of on its way there.
Thank you a lot.
Okay.
Our next question comes from Jim Roop with Westwood One News. Your line is now open.
Thank you. Good morning. Jim Boyd said a couple of things yesterday that I would love some clarification on. Number one, that, as I understand it, the crater, Halemaumau, is now went from 12 acres to 90 acres. What does that mean in the scheme of things? And then what do you mean by the fact that the theory of eruptions might be changing a little bit, in that they are gas-driven as opposed to steam-driven, even though instruments would say the contrary? Can someone clarify that for me?
Sure. So it's not Halemaumau itself that has gained an area. It's the overlook crater vent that's inside Halemaumau. So since the lava is drained away, that crater vent the overlook crater vent has been kind of collapsing in on itself. And in the process of some of these explosions that have occurred from the sun, another vent has opened up that's really, it looks like a classic steam vent. It's white in color, and we haven't been able to get any accurate gas measurements specifically from that location. It's dangerous for our scientists to go out there and then, flying a drone into that area to collect measurements, we just don't want to lose it. So the change in idea of the dynamics that are driving the summit explosions has come about because of a few different things that we're seeing. There's gas data that we have gotten from traverses downwind, indicating that there is magma still within that crater vent, the overlook crater vent. And the material that is coming out in the process of explosion has some, what we call juvenile material. So it's little bits of lava, essentially, that are thrown out, in addition to, the corroded rocks that are from within the vent. So we have two things. We have certainty for volcanic gases, like SO2, and some other volcanic gases, and then we have these juvenile components. And in the background of all of this is scientists are having this conversation of what is actually driving these events, and we're trying to get a better handle on it, and looking at the geophysical data as well, so the deformation data and the seismic data, trying to pick out patterns. And in doing this, we're hoping to better understand what's going on within the Halemaumau system itself, and that can help us to better forecast when things might be closing down up there. So does that help answer your question a little bit?
Actually, it does. Thank you very
Okay.
much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Right. Our next question comes from Miguel Marquez, CNN. Your line is now open. Thank you very much. Wendy, very quick question for you. On a big picture, can you give us a sense of where you think this new activity, the new lava is coming from? We seem to have a couple of days where lots of fissures went dormant, and then several reactivated yesterday, and now obviously 8 is really sort of working away, it seems. Any idea sort of what that play in the vast system of plumbing?
Okay. Wendy Stovall, USGS. So the way that we are envisioning this is that the whole, it's called a dike, it's a perpendicular plane of magma that has risen up to the surface in the area where these fissures are active. Essentially, the whole dike is at the surface right now. So we see it sometimes become more vigorous in one area and then kind of die down and become less vigorous. But the general idea is that we have it's at the surface, and it's starting to migrate back to the west and uprift. So that's, 2 days ago, Fissure 7 was the most active one. 2 days before that, the vents that were, the vents that were a little bit further to the east were active, and so we're still seeing this progression back towards the east. We're doing measurements of temperature and gas at the vents that are further uprift, and we have noticed that they're starting to show signs that those, the ones that are a little bit further to the west will reactivate. The thing that we are not seeing, and we continue to not see, is that the area around Highway 130, where those cracks are, where they've kind of covered them over with slates, there's no sign of SO2, or H2S first, which would be the first gas that we would detect if magma was moving to the surface. It's really just in the line where the fissures originally opened that we're seeing potential reactivity uprift towards the west. So that's really what's going on, and there's no further sign that there's a widening in the lower east drift zone, and we were seeing the widening. The widening was indicating that there was magma that's pressurized in that system pushing out. So we're not seeing that anymore, and we do expect things to probably continue to migrate still to the west. So.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Michael Phillips from William Weather. Your line is now open.
Hi, my question is for the National Weather Service. It looks like in the light winds yesterday, a pyrocumulus cloud formed, creating an isolated thunderstorm over Wailani Estates. Are you seeing more things like that popping up, and is the volcano eruption driving any weather on the Big Island or throughout the state with all the aerosols that's pumping in the air?
No, I didn't see anything in our lightning detection network yesterday for any thunderstorms over there, but we have seen pyrocumulus, especially coming out of the East Rift area. If you look at the plumes coming off of that, you'll see the pyrocumulus forming at the top of those plumes. But we haven't seen anything large enough to produce thunderstorms. We do have, of course, a lot of aerosols in the air. On the other side of the island in Kona, it's very hazy over there with visibilities below or at 5 miles with all the particulates in the air that kind of traverse down from the crater around the island to the southwest and then come up and around and affect the leeward side of the island. For the smaller islands, we haven't had the right wind direction to bring any of that towards the smaller islands, which is good for the rest of the state. And we're in a good part of the year where trade winds do continue for most of the time here. We rarely see interruptions in trade. So hopefully that continues during this event.
Thank you.
Our next question comes from Michael Restavinsky with Hawaii Tribune Herald. Your line is now open.
Thank you. This one's for Wendy again. The lava lately has been obviously a little bit faster than it has been in the past. I believe around a couple hundred in an hour. I was wondering if you might comment on what factors are driving that speed increase, and whether it would be plausible for it to get still faster in the future.
Hi, Wendy Stovall, USGS. So we've seen a couple of different things happen, especially over the past 48 hours. The lava that moved through Leilani Estates that was reported to 10 lots in 10 minutes was a result of a breakout of ponded area. So when lava builds up these ponds, creates sides for itself that hold a big body of lava, it remains hot, and that lava remains still very fluid in nature. So if the side of that pond, the wall of the pond fails, it will pour out very rapidly. And so that was what happened in the 10 lots in 10 minutes scenario. Channelized lava flows, there have been channelized lava flows. Prior to that, we started to see when things ramped up a little bit over a week ago, and those were moving down to the coast. And we believe that those flows were probably moving similarly as fast as the ones that have been recorded just overnight and some yesterday. So it's just really a process of how the lava is contained or how fast it flows. The ones that have been moving from Fissure 8 today and today have been channelized, and they've been going more towards that northeasterly direction. So the slope is not as great as it was going down to the coast. Perhaps we even had faster flow rates going down to the coast. It was very hard for us down to measure that because of the sulfur dioxide hazard present. We didn't want to put anyone down with that for long periods of time. But we have finally been able to get these calculations of some of these channelized flows, and Fissure 8 is really the dominant direction of flow is to the northeast, and so we have been able to get those measurements. The lava coming off of those fountains is very hot. We had high temperature measurements from them several days ago. We don't think that the temperatures have gone down significantly, and because it's hot, it just is allowed to stay more fluid and flow more freely, and that's why we're seeing those higher flow rates.
Thank you.
Next question comes from Rosemary Otto with Honolulu Star Advertiser. Your line is now open.
Hi, this question is for Wendy. Just stepping back a little bit where you mentioned there were some incandescent blocks that were thrown and landed on the edge of the crater rim. Can you please expound on that? Can you quantify how many blocks were thrown in that explosion?
Okay, this is Wendy Stovall. So I actually haven't seen the footage of it, but we have webcams that are up at the HVO, still on the HVO tower that are at Hollywood. So after the eruption happened last night, one of our scientists that was on watch combed back through those images and noted that there are white blocks. They are, when they're white, they're incandescent when they show up in the cameras. And the reason why they're incandescent is because we are now, changing our frame of reference, and these magmatic gases, as they're streaming through the vent, are very hot, and those are continuing to heat the blocks that are in the walls of the vent. And so when the explosions happen, it throws out those hot blocks, and we can see them in webcam imagery, especially overnight. It's very easy to see them overnight.
Thank you, Wendy.
Yep. I just want to note that we're hopefully going to be able to install a thermal camera to better quantify and note when those incandescent blocks are being thrown out, and also how far they're reaching. So without putting anyone in harm's way to go out on the crater floor and measure those things, we should be able to see how many there are and where they're landing, and hopefully we'll have some more detailed information once we get those cameras in place.
Great. Thanks again.
Our next question comes from Heidi Chang. Your line is now open.
Thank you. Aloha. I have a question for Wendy. Wendy, in the past you've talked about how lace has been an ongoing phenomenon. My question is about Pele's hair. How frequent is it? Is it rare, or how often do you see it flowing? And could you describe it a little bit more, how it's created, and when it falls, how dangerous is it, and how it can affect people? Thank you.
Hi, this is Wendy Stovall. So, Pele's hair is something that occurs in fountaining eruptions, and I don't know if any of you have ever watched someone blow glass, or if you can imagine like blowing glass. So this is kind of what the fountains are doing. They're throwing up very hot, liquid rock into the air, which is volcanic glass, essentially. And when the pieces cool, as they're flying through the air, they leave these strands of, long strands of glass behind them. And those strands cool as the molten material is flying through the air. That's Pele's hair, those cooled strands of volcanic glass that are coming off of the fountain, usually off the tops of the fountain. Over the past 24 hours, people have started to notice it because the winds have shifted. And so even though we had high fountains earlier in this eruption, the trades were strong, and they were blowing things downwind or away from Ahoa, which is where we've had these reports of the Pele's hair. So that's the formation process and why we haven't seen them until recently. I've done a lot of work in the field and have looked at deposits of Pele's hair, and if you put it in your hand and you crumpled it up, and it's like tiny little needles, so it would just poke into your skin, and that's really it's not specifically a hazard. It's not in a huge amount. There's not like large quantities of Pele's hair falling from the sky. It just you might notice it falling on you, and you might see some little bits of what look like shiny little strings, or they almost look like spider webs, and they land on your skin. And if you rub your skin, just like if you were to walk in an attic that had fiberglass, if you were to rub your skin when you got that on your skin, then it would irritate you. And it's not going to cause you any, it's not going to hurt you for a long period of time. It's just going to be an irritant, a skin irritant. Or if it gets in your eyes, it will irritate your eyes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Our next question comes from Denise Layton with USA Today. Your line is now open.
Hi, my question is for Wendy. Wendy, I am looking at the map that was released by USGS yesterday. Earlier in the call, you mentioned that Fissure 8 has channelized lava and it's moving northeast. There's a path of steepest descent on a blue line on the map that would take the lava across 132 and then downslope towards Beach Road, which is about 5 miles downslope. Are you seeing the lava stay true to that path of steepest descent, the fast-moving channelized flow that's coming from Fissure 8?
I actually haven't gotten an exact location for where that lava is going down, but to travel, we haven't seen lava flows that have reached distances yet, like down to the Beach Road area. So we can't even start to think about whether it would get that far. But we do know that it has crossed over the PGV access road, and that's just to the north. There's if you're looking at that map, there's a 1955 flow, and then the topographic high area. So it's going just kind of around that area, and has crossed the PGV road. So again, not exactly sure where it is right now. I can try to find out.
My question was, what if the lava was following the path of steepest descent, if it was staying true to that? Because
it seems to be a little bit offset from the path of steepest descent right now. So a little bit to the south of it.
Gotcha.
Howard S. Question come from Michael in Bristol-Vesey with the Hawaii Tribune Herald. Your line is now open.
Hi, thanks again. Another one for Wendy. I know the composition of the lava, the more recent lava, has been newer lava rather than the stuff that's been sitting in the East Rift Zone for the past several decades. Can you update what's the composition of the latest flow from Fissure 8? What's that now?
We don't have a new number on that. I'm sorry. Hey, this is Wendy Sobel. So today we are still seeing continued activity in both locations on Surf Zone and at the summit. This is kind of more of the same that we've been seeing over the past few days. The eruptive activity in the lower East Rift Zone is continuing to migrate back to the west along a fissure line. There's an approximately 2-mile long line of activity of fountaining, low fountaining of lava, and then those fountains are feeding massive lava flows that are channelized going down to the coast. There's 2 primary channels that are going down from the locus of activity, and the easternmost channel has split into 2 down at the coast. So now there are 3 ocean entries at the coast. Lays is issuing off of those ocean entries, and hopefully we'll get a weather update to talk a little bit about that. There seems to be a lot of lava being produced by Fissure 7, and that is in Leilani State. The flows themselves are moving a little bit to the north, but mostly to the south from that point. And we have field crews on the ground there monitoring the progress of that. They've had a hard time getting closer to those flows because they are so voluminous. And then if we go up to the summit is pretty socked in today. It's very cloudy, and so we haven't had a whole lot of great visual observations of what's happening at the summit, but we do have some observations from cameras that are up on Mauna Kea. I'm trying to get the exact information about where these images are coming from, but we've seen a couple of plumes rise above the clouds from imagery coming from an observatory in Mauna Kea, and we did see a plume go up to about 6,000 feet above sea level, 6,000 to 7,000 feet above sea level this morning, but it was just a minor explosion. And then yesterday afternoon, one went up to about 8,000 feet. And then yesterday at about 5 p.m., there was a magnitude 3.9 earthquake at the summit of Kilauea. That's the general update for today.
Good morning, everyone. We continue to see the trade wind pattern as has been being briefed for the past couple of days. The trade wind pattern means generally winds are from the northeast in the lower levels. I do want to highlight that today's winds are expected to be the strongest that we've seen all week and that we should see in the coming days, with gusts up to between 20 and 25 miles per hour possible. I mentioned these stronger winds mainly because if there is an explosion or plume that occurs at the summit, as Wendy has just briefed, there's been a few, we could see the ash being carried a little farther downwind than we have seen in the past couple of days. However, because of this northeast wind, we are still going to continue to see the plume going to the southwest, pretty much from the summit down Highway 11 down to Pahola. I also want to note, though, too, with these gustier winds, the winds can also pick up any ash deposits that have recently fallen and can result in dusty conditions, possibly even reduced visibility. We haven't had that report yet, but it is a potential with the gustier winds. As such, the National Weather Service is continuing to issue a special weather statement in effect for the Cal District, accounting for these hazards pretty much until further notice. One thing of note, Wendy was talking about the different plume heights. From a sounding that the Weather Service did earlier today, for your information, it would take a plume height of around 15,000 feet above ground level to have any ash interaction with any of a westerly flow, which would be taking it more towards the Gila direction. So again, it would have to get to around 15,000 feet. Most of the plumes and explosions we've seen in the past couple of days have been between the 5,000 to 8,000 feet above ground level, which is why we are seeing the ash mainly on the the northeast trade winds heading down to the southwest from the summit along Highway 11. And then turning our attention to the areas around the fissures, that northeast flow is impacting down there as well. During the day, around the fissures, we do get the winds turning a little bit more to the west during the overnight hours, but they do weaken during the overnight, so we don't see too much of a turn in direction necessarily of any of the fog. Primarily, so as long as the sulfur dioxide is being emitted from the fissures, we do expect the development of the fog in the vicinity of the fissures, and that northeast flow carrying them to the south and the west. And that looks to be ongoing for the time being. Also mentioned about the lays. With this flow, any of the lays that does form as the lava is entering the ocean should keep the threat immediate around where that lays is forming at the coastline, or taking it out a little into the ocean. And one last thing I wanted to touch on, because Wendy did mention about the earthquake. The Pacific Tsunami Warning Center is monitoring every earthquake activity. No tsunami threats at this time by any means, but just to make you aware that we are continuing to monitor every single earthquake that does occur, and products will be issued as needed.
Hi, Jim Kawakawa, U.S. Geological Survey's Hawaiian Volcano Observatory. Do a quick summary of what's happening. Vents 8 and 16 have reactivated. 22 and 13 are still the main southbound channels going into the two ocean entries, although that has been quite weak today. The biggest producer is vent 7, and from vent 7 there are two main channels. The north channel goes towards PGV property, and the south channel will turn around and go south, possibly making a new ocean entry sometime in the next day or two, if it continues. The PGV, the lobe that went towards PGV stalled early this morning about 6 or 7 o'clock. It was relatively stable for most of the day, and then it started to reactivate with new lava from vent 7 about the middle of the afternoon, or a little earlier than maybe about lunchtime. It was very slow beginning, but the lava flow did start to advance again, and that's why we're not there physically, and our drone team was pulled out just before to do another commitment, so we don't know exactly where the lava flow is on pad E that you were asking about, but we do know that the flow is advancing across pad E from basically west to east. There is another lobe of that flow that is going to the northeast, north of Honuaula, and it is making some progress towards Highway 130, which is on the other side of the PGV property. At the summit, we have had almost continuous emissions of ash, with one event that went up to about 10,000 feet around noon. The summit is still deflating. The lower east rift is quite stable in terms of expansion and earthquakes. Gases in both areas, gas emission rates are quite high in both areas. I think our figure is up to 3 times what the initial gas emissions were for the lower east rift zone fissures. And even at the summit, emissions are still quite high. Any questions?
Can you tell us about Fissure 24?
Oh, yes.
Is there no lava coming out of that?
The new star. Fissure 24 was noticed this morning. It was actually a rather slow output. It was going into filling a pre-eruption crack in Leilani Estates. It was certainly well overshadowed by vent 7 and the big fountain zero, which achieved almost a 200-foot elevation above the ground. It's been very dramatic. You can actually see that fountain very clearly on our one of our east rift zone cams. It's called the PG cam. But Fissure 24, we don't expect will probably last very long. It was very slow beginning. Sorry, and
did lava come out of that?
It did, but it was kind of pasty, and it just flowed into a crack that wasn't more than about 100 yards away. And the crack was pre-existing, so it was a fairly wide crack. Any other questions?
Fissure 7, any estimate on a number of the amount? Sorry, yeah, down there. An amount coming out? At what rate?
It's a tough area to be in. We don't go up on the flow up to the channel because of the danger that there may be a little overspill or something that might trap us up there. So we're staying, on the pre-eruption ground, getting what we can of views and angles and things to try to determine, for example, the lava fountain heights. But no, we so far don't have an estimate. I think we had one 3 days ago. It was just for the area covered by lava, which was about, as I remember, 3.4 square miles. I'm sure it's larger now.
Is there an estimate how far the lava from flow 7 is to Highway 130?
No, she just asked that, I believe.
132.
Oh,
Yeah.
132. Yeah.
Unfortunately, we do have a little bad news. That bypass line that we did run down Pohiki Road was covered by lava on Friday. But prior to that, we had already started plans for, I think what Talmadge had mentioned earlier, is to outfit the well that near Green Lake Tank. So unfortunately, that well hasn't been in operation for over 20 plus years. There's no power to the site, but we've already sent crews out there to evaluate the system. We have equipment coming in as we speak. We have crews working on access to the property. So we hope to get that up and running in a matter of about a week or so. So again, we apologize for that disruption in service, but we're committed to continue to keep water flowing to those areas of Pohoiki, Kapoho Vacation Land, and beach lots. As soon as we can get that restored, we'll get that restored to you folks. Other than that, we'll be available over there off to the side if there's any detailed questions. Thanks.
This is a civil defense message for Saturday, May 26 at 10:30 in the morning. Lava flow activity continues in the East Rift Zone of Kilauea. The flow in Leilani Estates has slowed its advance and is 150 yards from Pohiki Road. The flows to the south continue to enter the ocean near Mackenzie State Park. Due to the volcanic activity, the following policies are in effect. Residents close to the active eruption must remain alert to changes in the flow direction and are advised to prepare for voluntary evacuation should their areas become threatened. Areas along Kamali'i Road are experiencing elevated levels of sulfur dioxide. Residents are advised to shelter in place or leave the area. Pahoa Community Center, Keao Community Center, and Sure Foundation Church are open. Food will be provided and shelters are pet friendly. Ash masks are being distributed at Cooper Center, Hawaiian Ocean View Community Center, Pahala Gym Annex, Shipman Gym in Keao, and Na'alehu Nutrition Center from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. today. We are on watch 24 hours a day for your safety. This is your Hawaii County Civil Defense Agency.
Okay, so down in the lower East Rift Zone, the main new activity overnight was the renewed eruption at vent number 8. A vigorous lava fountain developed and fed lava to a new flow that moved northward from the fissure complex, and it crossed Pohoiki Road earlier this morning. By that time, the flow was about 1.5 miles long, and it was only advancing a few yards per hour. So the flow has slowed considerably overnight. Also, elsewhere on the fissure complex, the erupting vents of the past few days that were erupting lava flows to the south and into the ocean had stopped erupting during the past day. The ocean entries this morning consist of only a very little amount of lava draining from the lava channels into the sea. So those are essentially quiet this morning. We've not recorded any additional earthquake activity in the lower part of the East Rift Zone or detected any additional deformation or widening of the rift zone in that area, suggesting that no additional new magma is accumulating in the lower East Rift Zone. Back up at the summit of the volcano from the main vent in Halima'u Mountain Crater, ash continued to erupt intermittently in the past day. There were a couple of stronger events this morning
right around 4:35 and also at 6:30. That generated some ash plumes up to about 10,000 feet and 12,000 feet respectively. Also, earthquakes are occurring at a higher rate at the summit area. These are small magnitude earthquakes, magnitude 2s and 3s. These are similar to some of the recent episodes of increased earthquake activity at the summit. Last for a day or two, 3. And these events we think are associated with the adjustment within the volcano as the summit area subsides in response to more magma leaving the summit reservoir than is coming into it from below. I think with that I'll stop.
All right, good morning. Today is day 18 of the park closure, and this has now exceeded the longest park closure to date, which was back in October of 2013 during a federal government shutdown. So this is an entirely different kind of shutdown. Again, it is a very unsafe place to be at the summit of Kilauea and its surrounding vicinity. We remind media that there is no media access to the park. We are the land manager, and if that should change, we'll let you know. But if it is not safe enough for park staff, for USGS staff, for our visitors, etc., it is not safe for media to be there either. I happened to be there Friday, right around noonish when the 4.0 struck. I was at the Jagger Museum overlook trying to get photography of law enforcement officers on a patrol, and it was somewhat terrifying to be there during that event. So really, guys, there is no media access, and again, if that changes, we will let you know. The Kazuku unit does remain open 5 days a week, Wednesday through Sunday, but it has been impacted negatively by ashfall and air quality, so keep that in mind if you were talking about Kazuku unit in your outreach. I would appreciate that. And I think that is it for my updates at this time.
Meteorologist with NOAA's National Weather Service.
Okay, good morning, everyone. The winds today are a little bit different than what we've seen for about the last week. We've been under typical trade wind flow with northeasterly winds. Well, that is changing today. The winds are swinging around to more of an easterly direction, and that's going to continue through Tuesday. And then once we get into Tuesday night and beyond, right through the next weekend, we'll get back into the typical trade wind flow with winds out of the northeast. Well, what that means here today through Tuesday is that we have the potential for the fog or haze from the Leilani Estates area to infect northwestward, and that could potentially bring bad air quality into the Pahoa region as well as Mountain View and areas even up to and around the Hilo area. Also, I wanted to mention that the winds above the surface are actually more out of the southeast through about the first 15,000 feet of the atmosphere, and then above that they shift around to the south and southwest above 15,000 feet. So what that means is that there's the potential, if there's a large enough eruption at Halemaumau, that there could be some ash that could spread onto Highway 11. And one other thing I wanted to mention, too, is we're seeing some scattered showers move through the Leilani Estates area here today. We're expecting more rainfall with heavier and more frequent showers to move in tonight and Tuesday, and that might act to reduce the emissions moving northwestward into the Hilo area as the water absorbs those emissions. That's all I have.
Hi, Mr. Brantley. You mentioned that there have been little to no earthquakes in the lower East Rift Zone and that it's indicative of no new magma intrusion. Would that be in any way indicative of the volume of magma that's available to feed an ongoing eruption, or does that signify that perhaps this could be short-lived because there is no new magma movement in there?
What's your affiliation?
KWXX B97 KPUA radio.
Thank you.
The lack of additional earthquake activity further down the rift and the absence of additional widening across the whole rift section down there simply means that
that magma is no longer accumulating there as a larger volume. But clearly, magma is still moving from the upper part of the rift zone into the lower east rift zone and erupting at the surface. So it just only points out that there's not an additional intrusion or an accumulation of magma to what's already been in place in early May.
Okay, thank you.
Hi there. I was wondering whose drone helped guide a resident trapped by lava out last night, and how was that UAS used?
The lava flow that moved through Leilani Estates last evening was tracked by a team of pilots using drones from both the U.S. Geological Survey and the Interior Department's Office of Aviation Services. This team has been here for the past week or two to help track a variety of things, both at the summit and down in the lower east rift zone for the U.S. Geological Survey, but primarily for the Hawaii County Civil Defense Emergency Operations Center.
The Puna geothermal plant, are there any more lava flows there, or have they ceased? Anyone who can answer that, please.
It's my understanding that the flows that were encroaching upon PDV had slowed or stopped. For more specific information about PDV property, I suggest that it's best that you call the Hawaii County's Emergency Operations Center.